It's 10:04, and I'm going to call the meeting to order. Shelley, if you can do a roll call, please.
Sure. Gary Abrahams?
Here.
Wendy Clark?
Here.
Heidi DeWinger?
Here.
Ann Foley?
Here.
Ali Goslin?
Here.
Tim Hodges?
Here.
Catherine McKinnon?
Here.
Ayla Mascara Bruno?
Here.
George Perez? George? George? Franklin Perry?
Here.
Sarah Sanders?
Here.
Jared Schmidt? Jared? Lisa Tepper Bates? Gwendolyn Thames?
Present.
Carla Weil?
Here.
So the first item on the agenda is public comments. Would you like me to proceed with that?
Yes, please.
Okay. If you'd like to make a comment, you'll be prompted to press 10 on your phone.
This conference is now in question and answer mode. To alert the speaker that you have a question, press 1, then 0. Each question will be asked in the order it was received.
If there's anyone from the public who would like to make a comment, please press 10 on your phone, and you're going to be placed into a queue and unmuted in the order that the request was received. Your comments will be limited so that we can get through the rest of the agenda. For providing your comment, please provide your name and your company affiliation. Press 10 now. There are no public comments, so Commissioner, I turn the meeting over to you.
Thank you, Shelley. We're going to have the... Hello?
Hello?
Okay, we'll start. We're going to have the CEO Executive Director's report. Nandini?
Sure. Thank you. Good morning, Commissioner Mascara Bruno and members of the board. Besides my written report this month, I wanted to touch on a few things and highlight a few things for you. It's been a very busy month, and just to touch on a few of the things that we've been working on. As you know, the board approved a forbearance program for multifamily developments last month. Masuda Omar will be providing a full update of our experience to date with that program and where we stand with respect to approvals that we've requests that have been received. We closed and funded a single-family bond issue in early May. I think as Azim had provided an update last month, the bond markets have not been functioning. The depth of the market is really not there anymore at the moment, with spreads widening between treasuries and municipals. And so in order to take advantage of direct placement opportunity, we were able to fund a single-family issue that will allow us to continue originating single-family business well into 2020 without having to access the bond market. It'll allow us to keep our current first-time homebuyer rate in place and continue to keep that line of business going. Having said that, we are seeing a significant change in year-over-year reservation volume, and so we do expect our volume to be significantly down over last year. But this will enable us to continue to support those first-time buyers that are in the market and want to buy a home. We continue to keep lines of communication open with our partners. We've had 2 monthly calls this month, one with developers and sponsors, and another one with property owners and managers. And both have been really productive and very useful calls, I think, for all parties. We've received some really positive feedback. Thank you to Kylie Goslin and the Partnership of Strong Communities, who has been pivotal in creating this platform that we've been able to use effectively. Most recently, with respect to the property owners call, Kylie's team was able to create a platform, an electronic platform for property owners to share information with each other about best practices as a result of COVID, and ask questions and get those questions answered. So it's been a real win, I believe, for many folks. The Commissioner and I, as well as the Office of the Governor and HUD and a number of other stakeholders, are on a long-term housing recovery task force. We are thinking through and talking through some of the ways that the state can be best positioned to assist with the economic recovery in housing and what tools may be available to aid in that recovery. Recently, a survey was sent out to landlords and owners of multifamily properties to get sort of a read, check pulse in terms of what's going on with them, what are they experiencing, and really trying to get a read on the entire landscape of small owners, large owners, rent collections, to understand sort of the depth of the crisis that we're in and figure out how we can, leverage resources or create resources that didn't exist before. So, in short, we're continuing to find ways to adjust our business to the changing environment we find ourselves in. As an example of something we've done recently, as you know, we provide pre-purchase counseling for first-time home buyers, and it's a prerequisite for getting a CHFA first mortgage. Recently, counseling agencies that administer these programs for us reached out to us asking us if we could adjust our program for COVID to an online platform. So we got to work. We've worked with them. We've developed a program where they can use Zoom or other electronic means to deliver financial fitness and other, needs that may be essential in this time of, in this particular time. So we're in the process of amending our agreements with our counseling agencies as a result of that retooling of a program that was all in person before COVID hit. As you all know, our strategic plan is entering its next phase. We did a scan of all of our stakeholders. We surveyed them. We then followed up with focus groups, in some cases interviews, depending on the numbers of people we were dealing with. And we are now working with our consultant to consolidate and distill the information that we received back for you, so that next week we will have all of that information ready to discuss with you and formulate some strategies and goals that we can use going forward for our plan. Finally, I'd like to say that the QAP has also been in process. We've been working with the task force. We have it before you today for a approval for public comment period. So in Connecticut, it's a two-phase process. The board gets to approve the draft for public comment, and then the board also approves the final QAP. So this is the first of those two steps. In this particular QAP, I'm not going to take Terry Nash's thunder away, but I'll just tell you that the main focus of this has been to bring clarity to our current QAP, as well as to make some positive or neutral changes based on public input that was received last winter. With that, I will end and ask if there are any questions.
Hi, Nandini. It's Tim Hodges. I don't have any specific questions. I do want to commend you and the staff for reaching out to developers and others to have those question and answer periods. I think it's really important during this period of time for people to kind of understand kind of what the landscape is and what we're doing. I would encourage you, particularly as you're thinking about June and including others, the one group that I didn't see on there are investors, right? And I know that might sound or seem counterintuitive or maybe not as important, but without the investors, you don't actually have the money, right? And I think investors look at this and say, okay, what's actually going on in the states? And particularly in Connecticut, where you have, People's United as an example, Webster Bank, but a number of other banks who smaller institutions who might not be in this space right now but have an opportunity to get in, they need to understand kind of what's going on and want to understand what's going on. So as you move forward, I would encourage you to at least extend an olive branch to investors so that they can understand better on what's going on as well, and be able to communicate with their internal folks to say, this is where the state's going, and this is why we need to make or continue to make investments.
Thank you. That's a great idea. Certainly, I think we would learn a lot from hearing from them in terms of what they're seeing and how they're valuing their investments in the short, medium to long term. So thank you for that.
Any other question for Nandini? Nandini, is Masuda is going to talk about the forbearance right now?
Actually, Commissioner, it's towards the end of the agenda. So if that's okay with you, we can keep with that particular order. And is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Moving on with the agenda, we have 4 projects that the Mortgage Committee approved today. So we have 4 resolutions, and the first resolution is going to be presented by Colette.
Hi, this is Kath McKinnon. I am going to follow the suggestions of our bylaws and step out of the room, see if I have a conflict of interest with this.
And this is Carla. I have a conflict of interest. We have a loan on this as well. I'm going to stay here, but I won't. But I'll abstain on the vote.
Okay. Good morning. This is Colette Slover. Everyone can hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Great. Thanks. Good morning. 316 on the Park and Park Terrace 2 is a project located in Hartford. This is a board action to approve up to $10 million in tax-exempt bonds for construction-only loans with a term of up to 30 months and an up to 4.5% interest rate only loan. Ribbon Row Mutual Housing, LLC, will be the mortgagor. This is an entity that was formed by Mutual Housing Association of Greater Hartford, who is the developer. The development consists of 2 properties currently owned and operated by the developer, and they will be combined into a new tax credit entity. The first property, 316 Park Terrace, is 1 building. It was constructed in 1932 and acquired by the developer in 2016. It has had a troubled history and is a source of blight and crime in the neighborhood. This is a gut rehabilitation. 30 units will be reconfigured into 21 units that are more suitable for families. Residents have been permanently relocated as of February 2020. Renovations include energy efficiency upgrades, kitchen upgrades, flooring, increased site lighting, new walkways, and brick repointing. The second property, Park Terrace 2, is 13 mostly contiguous buildings next to 316 New Park. and it is an existing 68-unit LIHTC property. It completed its initial compliance period in 2017. The request includes the acquisition of the buildings by the new ownership entity. The work consists of minor to moderate rehab. That includes energy efficiency upgrades as well as upgrades to unit amenities. Tenants will be temporarily relocated for a 2-week period while the unit upgrades occur. The development team consists of Mutual Housing Association of Greater Hartford. They will act as the developer, the managing member, and the property manager. They have 25 years of affordable housing experience. The property management team has experience managing LIHTC properties. There are currently no outstanding issues related to noncompliance. They manage nearly 500 units of affordable housing, and that includes 9 LIHTC projects. Closing is targeted for summer of 2020 with construction to start shortly thereafter. 15 months construction period is estimated. Environmental remediation is included as part of the scope. That includes lead-based paint abatement as well as addressing mold growth in some of the buildings. When completed, this will be an 89-unit family housing development. It will consist of 1, 2, 3, and 4-bedroom apartments. There will be 10 accessible units. All of the units will be affordable to households with mixed incomes up to 60% AMI. The major source of funds include DOH Flex and Home Funds, LIHTC equity, and federal and state historic tax credit equity. There is also a lead hazard and healthy homes grant. State Bond Commission approval has been received for the DOH Flex funds. The strengths of this transaction include a transit-oriented location. It is nearby Parkville CT Fast Track and is in walking distance. There's also 7-day-a-week nearby bus service. This project will leverage other public and private investments in the area, including infrastructure upgrades, streetscapes improvements, and nearby park improvements. The project challenges include the construction loan paydown to come primarily from the LIHTC equity as well as the state and federal historic tax credit equity. This presents a moderate risk. However, the conditions that the mortgager must meet in order to receive the equity payments we believe are standard and achievable. Some outstanding questions remain related to the SHPO requirements. Those will be addressed as a closing condition. The COVID-19 health crisis also introduces other considerations. This includes possibly ordering materials in advance as well as securing materials from U.S. companies. There are mitigating factors incorporated to reduce CHFA risk in the payoff of the construction loan. This includes CHFA holding the syndicated required operating reserve during construction. We will also require a 10% construction contingency. CHFA technical services staff will work closely with SHPO to ensure that the scope of work meets their requirements. Additional closing considerations include verifying that the few open items related to the scope of work are incorporated and have been reviewed by SHPO. We will require that the 10% construction contingency be maintained with the finalization of the construction contract. Thank you.
Thank you, Colette. Any questions for Colette?
Yeah, hi, it's Jerry Abrahams. I just had one question. Is Redstone also responsible for the syndication of the state and federal historic credits?
Yes.
And have they identified an investor yet? Is it the same investor of the LIHTC?
I believe it's Santander.
Santander? Right.
Yes, that's what she said. Santander, right, Colette?
I believe it's for both the historic and the LIHTC.
So clearly, if you have that investor already identified and they're taking all the pieces, then that is, in my mind, mitigates that, the takeout risk with respect to historic credits significantly.
Okay. That's good to know.
Any other questions? Thank you, Jerry.
Hi, Stella. It's Wendy.
Yes, Wendy.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Are the former tenants permanently rehoused, or are they coming back to this development on completion?
So for 316 Park Terrace, that was the building that needs gut rehabilitation. Those tenants have been permanently relocated. So when Mutual Housing purchased the property, it was in pretty poor conditions. So I believe some of those units had already been offline, and as tenants left, they kept them offline, and then they permanently relocated the remaining tenants.
Thank you, Wendy. Any other questions?
Commissioner, this is Ann Foley. I just wanted to indicate to the board members who are not part of the mortgage committee that there was significant discussion on this item and the next item, frankly, about the concentration of affordable deed-restricted housing in this neighborhood. The developer apparently owns quite a bit of the housing in that neighborhood, but I think more importantly, apparently a majority of the housing there is deed restricted. So it led to kind of a discussion of concentration, where the balance should be, where we should be using CHFA resources in terms of concentrating those resources in particular neighborhoods. On the other hand, there was obviously a concern about the need to develop blighted properties in those neighborhoods. So apparently the city is supportive of this project and the next project as well. And I think that Nanthani has scheduled a broader discussion opportunity for us next week to talk about, where as a board we see that balance about using CHFA resources in terms of concentrating in certain neighborhoods versus, the need to develop the blighted properties. So I just wanted to flag that as a discussion item that the mortgage committee had that was raised in particular on this and the next item. And the board did vote unanimously on this. The committee voted unanimously on this particular one.
Thank you, Ann. And yes, at the next board meeting or a special meeting, we're going to be talking about some of these issues which can be part of our strategic plan. Any other questions? Okay, if we can proceed, if I can have a motion to approve the resolution.
I'll move it.
Ann? Ann? May I have a second?
Second, Wendy.
Thank you, Wendy. I'm going to have to, Shelley, can you do a roll call?
Yes. Jerry Abraham?
Aye.
Wendy Clark?
Yes.
Heidi DeWinger?
Aye.
Ann Foley?
Aye.
Kelly Goslin? Kylie?
Aye.
Tim Hodges?
Aye.
Catherine McKinnon is recused. Stella Mascara-Bruno?
Yes.
George Perez? Franklin Perry?
Aye.
Sarah Sanders?
Aye.
Eric Schmidt? Lisa Tepper-Bates? No, we can't hear you. Yes.
Yes, you say yes.
Gwendolyn Payne?
Aye.
And Carla, you're abstaining?
Abstain. Thanks.
Motion passes. The next resolution is for the project Clover Gardens and is also in Hartford. Seth, do you want to present the resolution?
Yes, good morning. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. Clover Gardens is a proposed 32-unit development in the Asylum Avenue neighborhood of Hartford. The developer is Chrysalis Center Real Estate, and the property includes 4 historic buildings. The request is for a construction-only loan of up to $6.5 million using tax-exempt bonds with a maximum term of 24 months at an interest rate of approximately 4%. The buildings are within walking distance to restaurants, pharmacies, grocery stores, and banks. The development will have a 40-year affordability restriction and will utilize income averaging for units at 30%, 60%, and 80% of area median income. The 32 units include studio, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and 3-bedroom apartments. 8 units will be designated for supportive housing for 9 individuals with an intellectual disability or autism spectrum disorder, otherwise known as I-. Each I- unit will be equipped with smart technology to promote independent living skills. Motion detection stoves, fall detectors, and a Ring doorbell are just a few options that residents can choose from. The developer owns numerous properties, 3 of which are in CHFA's portfolio. They are also in talks to acquire the remaining Nehemiah portfolio in Middletown. Sources of funding for the development include LIHTC, federal and state historic equity, DOH funds, and City of Hartford Home, a general partner loan, and a deferred developer fee. The project has its strengths as the developer has other supportive housing deals on their resume, including Liberty Gardens and Cotchgrove Commons. Clover Gardens continues to align with their mission to provide supportive services to assist people in need to transform their lives. The project has very little debt and is expected to cash flow for 18 years. There will be 8 additional I- units created in the state. The development does come with its share of challenges, however. The paydown risk is high, as the majority of the construction financing is expected to be paid down by LIHTC and historic equity. The developer has not yet final closed the tax credit development, and we are continuing to track the impact of COVID-19 health crisis on the construction. Since the development is vacant, there will be no impact to residents, but worker safety and building material are a concern that will be monitored by the general contractor. Although there are challenges, there are many mitigating factors. Paydown risk is high, but the construction period is 12 months, which gives the development team an additional 12 months to achieve the benchmarks associated with obtaining equity. The developer may not have experience in closing tax credit developments, but they have assembled an experienced team that has a history of working with CHFA and DOH. In addition to CHFA's standard closing conditions, Tech Services staff will continue to work closely with the State Historic Preservation Office to ensure all of SHPO's guidelines are in the scope of work and acceptable to CHFA. If approved, this will be the 3rd development with I- units that CHFA has financed, joining Canton Specialty Housing and Bloomfield Specialty Housing. Clover Gardens will continue creating housing for these individuals in need and impact their lives for the better. Are there any questions?
Any question for Seth?
Commissioner, it's Ann, and I'll just say there was, similar discussion on this item. The city had originally been opposing it, but now they are supportive of it. In addition to that discussion, there were a couple of folks on the committee who were very supportive of the I- component of this Clover Gardens.
Thank you, Ann. Any questions? Okay, so can I have a motion to approve this resolution?
This is Carla. I move it.
I'll second it. It's Ann.
Shelley, could you do the roll call, please?
Yes. Jerry Abrahams?
Aye.
Wendy Clark?
Aye.
Heidi DeWinger?
Aye.
Ann Foley?
Aye.
Kylie Goslin?
Abstain.
Tim Hodges?
Aye.
Catherine McKinnon?
Aye.
Kayla Mascara Bruno?
Yes.
George Perez? Franklin Perry?
Aye.
Sarah Sanders?
Aye.
Lisa Tepper Bates?
Aye.
Gwendolyn Thames?
Aye.
Carla Weil?
Aye.
1 abstention.
Motion passes. Maura is going to present the resolution for the Enterprise Abbot Apartments in Waterbury.
Good morning. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. You have before you a request
to approve TEB proceeds for a first mortgage construction to permanent financing in an amount up to $19,842,000 for Enterprise Abbot Limited Partnership for the acquisition and rehabilitation of Enterprise Apartments in Abbot Towers located in Waterbury. These are both historic buildings. They're about a quarter mile apart, and they house 187 senior units. The moderate rehab at a total of $91,000 per unit addresses critical needs, which include roof replacement, window replacement, masonry repointing. There'll be a new heating system. There's an upgrade to the security system and the fire system, along with select unit upgrades and environmental remediation. This transaction is an approved CHAMP 12 deal, and the TEB construction permanent financing request is a first construction mortgage of approximately $10,242,000 at a rate up to 4.25% for 2 years, and a permanent loan not up to 9.6 at a rate not to exceed 4.25% for a 40-year term. The remaining sources of funds include LIHTC equity, DOH funds, flex funds. There's state and federal historic tax credit equity, excuse me, reserves, property reserves, NOI during construction, energy rebates, and a deferred developer fee. The new purchaser has also been approved by HUD to assume $4.2 million in HUD debt, which will be subordinate to both CHFA and DOH. The applicant is an affiliate of WIN Development. WIN is a large nationwide developer. They develop affordable, market rate, and mixed income housing. They have, for the past 10 years, they've developed 37 projects totaling $700 million. WIN Development affiliates currently have $65.5 million in outstanding loans with CHFA in 4 properties. The property will also be managed by WIN Residential, equally a nationwide company with a great deal of experience. They manage 100,000 units in 615 properties. The remaining team that WIN has assembled also has experience with DOH and CHFA. The property is currently 100% project-based Section 8, with most of the residents being 50% AMI or below. As part of this transaction, there'll be a new 20-year HAP, so those subsidies will remain in place. And the transaction is bond commission approved. The challenges facing the project are the following. The property has not received the Part 3 approval from the State Historic Commission, and they have not received a reservation of credit. We'll work with both SHPO and the applicant here to make sure that that approval is received prior to closing. The applicant has filed to enter the voluntary remediation program, and we received confirmation from DEEP this week that the sites have been accepted into that program. The owner has placed the worst case remediation costs into the development budget, so all costs should be covered. In order to conserve state resources, when reapplying for the CHAMP funds, the applicant was encouraged not to accelerate capital needs, but to handle them over time as the CNA had required or had. As such, a capital improvement escrow will be established at closing in addition to the normal replacement reserve escrow. The capital improvement escrow will identify the larger capital needs in the CNA and plan for their replacement with CHFA approval and oversight. The payoff risk here is moderate. However, the conditions that the mortgagor must meet in order to achieve the equity are standard and we believe achievable. The appraisers' range of prospective values range from $9.3 million to $9.7 million, and while that closely equates to the loan amount, CHFA procedures allow 2 metrics, either loan to cost or loan to value, to be at the 80% ratio. The loan to cost here is at 57%, so that obviously meets that metric. Lastly, due to the COVID-19 health crisis, WIN has developed safety and sanitary procedures for residents, construction workers, and oversight personnel. The construction schedule is being reworked as we speak so that the exterior and common area improvements are done first, leaving the residential items to later in the construction period. And the supply chain issues will be addressed closer to closing so that we have the most up-to-date information. Is there any questions?
Thank you, Maura. Any questions for Maura?
Hi, this is Kathy. What are the nature of the environmental issues, and what would be the worst case scenario?
Well, there is, now Jennifer can fill in if she, but I know there's soil remediation that's needed, VOC, there is an underground storage tank, and there's some remaining asbestos that needs to be removed. I don't know, Jennifer, if you can add to that.
Hi, this is Jennifer Landau. Yeah, that's correct, Maura. I mean, there is excessive soil contamination at the site, and there is a concern about possible vapor intrusion. So the owner's licensed environmental professional has suggested that the program be submitted to the VRP program, and DEEP has accepted them into the program. So with DEEP involvement, there'll be oversight of the remediation work that's being done. And the LEP will be required to report back to DEEP regarding the protocols and the remediation at the site.
Thank you, Jennifer. Any other questions?
Taylor, can you hear me? This is George.
George, how are you?
Good. I had a real difficult time signing in. It's totally my fault. As I could not hear any of the presentation because I was having technical difficulty. I just wanted the record to reflect. I'm going to abstain. No reflection in any of the presentations here in one word into now.
Okay. Thank you, George.
Okay.
Any questions?
Bye.
Any questions for Maura? Okay. So hearing none, can I have a motion to approve this resolution?
I'll move it. It's Ann.
Thank you, Ann. Can you have a second?
Second, Sarah.
Thank you. Shelley, could you do the roll call, please?
Jerry Abrahams?
Aye.
Betty Clark?
Aye.
Heidi DeWingert?
Aye.
Ann Foley?
Aye.
Kylie Goslin?
Aye.
Timothy Hodges?
Aye.
Catherine McKinnon?
Aye.
Kayla Mascara-Bruno?
Aye.
George Perez?
Abstain.
Franklin Perry?
Aye.
Sarah Sanders?
Aye.
Lisa Tepper Bates?
Aye.
Gwendolyn Thames?
Aye.
Carla Weil?
Aye.
Just one abstention.
Motion passes. Thank you. Joe, you're going to present the resolution for the prepayment for the Glenbrook Manor in Stamford?
I am. Thank you and good morning. The action item before you is to allow a prepayment of a CHFA loan for Glenbrook Manor in Stamford. Glenbrook Manor is a 44-unit Section 8 property in Stamford. It's a 4-story building that was constructed in 1980. The original loan was approximately $1.5 million, and it was originated in February of 1980. It matures in April of 2021, and the outstanding balance is approximately $105,715. The owner, which is an affiliate of the Stamford Housing Authority, is proposing a refinance and a recapitalization of the property, and they're undertaking a fairly comprehensive scope of approximately $4.1 million, which would include unit upgrades, including kitchens, baths, flooring, as well as common area upgrades in terms of HVAC systems, roofs, parking lots, et cetera. So with a fairly comprehensive scope of work and a nominal unpaid balance, staff is requesting that we authorize a prepayment of the existing loan subject to the following items. The payment of a yield maintenance fee of approximately $800, evidence that the new HUD-insured loan commitment is satisfactory to undertake the scope of work that was described, and lastly, evidence that the new use restriction associated with the 20-year PAP contract available. CHFA will continue to be the administrator and perform management and occupancy reviews, so we will continue to have oversight of property going forward. With that, entertain any questions you may have.
Thank you, Joe. Any questions for Joe? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the prepayment for Glenbrook Manor?
So moved.
Jerry Evans, I'll move.
Did that add, Shelley?
Yes, Jerry.
Jerry, second?
Second, Franklin.
Shelley, did you do the roll call, please?
Jerry Abraham?
Aye.
Wendy Clark?
Aye.
Heidi DeWinger?
Aye.
Ann Foley?
Aye.
Kelly Goslin? Kylie?
Aye.
Tim Hodges?
Aye.
Catherine McKinnon?
Aye.
Salem Mascara-Bruno?
Aye.
George Perez?
Yes.
Franklin Perry?
Yes.
Sarah Sanders?
Aye.
Lisa Tepper Bates?
Aye.
Gwendolyn Thames?
Aye.
Carla Weil?
Aye.
Unanimous?
Shelley?
Yes, unanimous.
Thank you. Motion carries. I couldn't hear you.
Sorry.
Isn't right. Just acknowledging. So our next item on the agenda is the resolution for authorization to public comment period for proposed amendments to the CHFA Multifamily Rental Housing Program and Low-Income Housing Tax Credit Procedures and the 2020 Low-Income Housing Tax Credit Qualified Allocation Plan. So Terry Nash, you are on.
Good morning, and thank you. So the recommendation before you is for the authorization of a public hearing for the Qualified Allocation Plan and a public comment period for the Multifamily Rental Housing Program procedures and the Low-Income Housing Tax Credit procedures. By way of background, so that you know, CHFA, as the state's allocating agency for federal low-income housing tax credits, administers the program in accordance with IRS regulations. And the IRS requires that each state provide program guidance through a qualified allocation plan. CHFA develops the state's QAP, reviews the tax credit applications that developers submit, and allocates the credits in accordance with policies that are outlined in the QAP. The board's QAP task force meets with staff throughout the year and considers potential revisions to the QAP. The public is then invited to make any comments after review of those revisions. For 2020, the QAP task force determined that revisions made would be responsive to public comments, the goal being to provide greater clarity and ease for applicants and to implement changes that are neutral or positive in impact. So the public hearing is a requirement of IRS regs, and that would have to occur prior to the board's adopting the final QAP and approval of the governor. With respect to the procedures, both of the LIHTC procedures and the multifamily rental housing procedures inform further the QAP and articulate policies related to the program. Revisions to the procedures require a 30-day public comment period. So with that, we are anticipating with approval that the public comment period would take place from June 9th to July 9th after suitable notice. And then the public hearing specific to the provisions of the QAP would be anticipated to take place in mid-June. We will be holding the public hearing virtually in accordance with the governor's direction regarding social distancing and public gatherings. Interested parties unable to attend that virtual public hearing would still be able to submit written comments during that 30-day public period commencing with the published notice. Our goal is to publish the notice on Sunday, May 31st. So it would be the entire month of June. All comments will be presented to the board along with the final proposed QAP and the LIHTC and multifamily rental housing procedures at the regular July meeting for approval. The task force reviewed and supported the revisions that you see in the materials in your package. I will note that the red line of the QAP initially appears to have a lot of changes, but this reflects the rearrangement of text intended to provide a better flow and a new guidance on governing authority, plus the inclusion of some operational activities that were previously located in the procedures, but clearly are more appropriate in the QAP. I did provide a summary of the proposed revisions to both the QAP and the procedures in the memo before you. If you'd like, I can describe them further. Otherwise, I would ask that you authorize a public hearing for the QAP and a public comment period for the low-income housing tax credits and the multifamily rental housing program procedures as presented.
Thank you, Terry. Questions for Terry?
Thank you for all your work on this, Terry. I really appreciate it. This is Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa.
Any other comments? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve the resolution presented by Terry?
So moved. This is Lisa again.
Tim, second.
Shelley, could you do the roll call, please?
Terry Abrahams?
Aye.
Wendy Clark?
Aye.
Heidi DeWingert?
Aye.
Ann Foley?
Aye.
Ellie Goslin?
Aye.
Tim Hodges?
Aye.
Catherine McKinnon?
Aye.
Kayla Mascaro-Bruno?
Aye.
George Perez?
Yes.
Franklin Perry?
Yes.
Sarah Sanders?
Aye.
Lisa Tepper Bates?
Aye.
Gwendolyn Thames?
Aye.
Carla Weil?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Motion passes. Thank you, Shelley. Our next item on the agenda, and I hope you guys have had an opportunity to read, is the adoption of CHFA bylaws. This is the first time that the authority will have a bylaws, and it has been an important item. Nandini and Terry have been working, just making sure that we get all our laws into the process, but it's a simple document so that it can guide us and whoever comes after us to work with the staff. So I'm going to let Terry to present the resolution.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone. For the record, my name is Terry Calderon, and as the Commissioner said, this is CHFA's first set of bylaws. The CHFA enabling legislation gives this board the power to adopt bylaws. The bylaws are meant to supplement and not conflict with our CHFA Act or other state statutes, such as freedom of information. And the bylaws, in large part, memorialize current board and committee practices. So I'm going to give a very brief overview of the highlights, starting with Article 2, which sets forth how board members are appointed. This tracks a statute. It also sets forth the powers and duties of the board, the main ones being to appoint the executive director and adopt written procedures on all aspects of CHFA's operations. This article also discusses signatory authority. It gives our CEO authority to sign documents and gives others that authority through board resolutions. Moving on to Article 3, this talks about meetings of the board and committees, and it largely memorializes the current practices and follows the Freedom of Information laws. I do want to note that we added a provision in Section 3.5 that would allow the board to consider matters from the committees without a full staff presentation to the board. Moving on to Article 4, it talks about the committees of the board. It sets up 4 committees, which CHFA historically has had, those being the executive, personnel, mortgage, finance, and audit. This article lists the principal functions and responsibilities of each committee based on current and past practice. It also allows for the creation of task forces and advisory committees, and it makes clear that those would have to follow the Freedom of Information laws. This article also makes clear that 3 board members constitute a quorum for the committees. Article 5 deals with subsidiaries. It recognizes the board's power to set up subsidiaries to own and manage properties and obtain financing for properties for low and moderate income families. Article 8 deals with conflicts of interest. And this article recognizes that CHFA board members are bound by the state ethics code. And the state ethics code says that a board member cannot take any action on any matter that is in substantial conflict with the proper discharge of your duties as a board member. And the state ethics code defines what constitutes a substantial conflict, which is if you have reason to believe or expect that you, your spouse, a dependent child, or a business with which you're associated will derive a direct monetary gain or suffer a direct monetary loss by reason of your official activity. So if that's the case and you have a substantial conflict, then you can't participate at all on that matter. And the state ethics code also defines when you have a potential conflict, which is if you're taking an action that would affect the financial interest of yourself, your spouse, parent, brother, sister, child, or your business. And the bylaws provide that if you have a potential conflict, you have to notify our board chair and recuse yourself from any deliberation, vote, and action on the matter, or you have to prepare a written statement describing the matter and the potential conflict and explain why, despite this potential conflict, you're able to vote and participate fairly in the matter. The bylaws also state that any board member with a conflict or a potential conflict is strongly encouraged to leave the room during discussion and voting on the matter, shall not participate in this discussion and vote, and shall not have access to confidential information on the matter. Moving to Article 10, the bylaws can be amended or repealed by a majority vote of the board. That's it for the overview. I do want to thank my colleague Rob Hicks for doing a great job drafting the bylaws. If anyone has any questions?
Thank you, Terry. This is very comprehensive, and if anybody has any questions.
Yeah, Phelan and Terry, thanks for doing this. This was, I had a little trouble sleeping last night. This helped out a lot. So a couple things. This, I think it was very easy to read, so I appreciate you doing this. There are a couple things that actually came up, though, that I want to make sure that I understand. It actually raised a couple different questions, particularly as related to the conflict section. So I will follow up, and I actually sent a note to Nandini, so I'll follow up with you probably as well, just to make sure I understand. I am curious, though, when it comes to board members participating or at least listening to the discussion, why would you would actually have them leave the room even though they're not voting on an issue, particularly with this group who might have who might be able to correct, for lack of a better term, some misconceptions about a particular issue. Why would they, if they're not voting, why would they necessarily need to leave the room?
Tim, it says that they're strongly encouraged to. It doesn't say you have to leave the room.
Yeah.
But if you have a conflict, you really shouldn't be participating in any discussion on the matter. I guess leaving the room would avoid that temptation to participate. But again, it says strongly encouraged. It doesn't say you're required to.
Yeah. Okay, that's helpful. And then lastly, and it was just me reading, right? So it appeared as though, I know this isn't nitpicking, but it's what I saw. So I'm passing it along. There seem to be extra spaces in some of the areas, and in fact different font in some of the sections. So I assume that you'll clean that up as you move forward.
Yes, we will do that. Thank you.
Hey, Teresa, it's Jerry Abrahams. Just following up on that question, if with respect to matters where there is either a direct conflict or potential conflict, does the suggestion to leave the room apply if the matter at hand is being discussed in open session that's open to the public?
Yes. It's, again, just a suggestion. It's not required.
Okay.
And I do want to say these are your bylaws, so if that's not something folks are comfortable with, we certainly could remove that. But I'm going to defer to you. And
with respect to the just an additional follow-up, with respect to the conflict of interest sections, again, my assumption is that these are, I think we've discussed this prior, these are largely drafted to be consistent with Connecticut statute, correct?
That's correct.
Teresa, this is George Perez. On that topic, you're telling me that Connecticut statute requires people to leave the room? Because my understanding is that you can actually participate, not to advocate for or against, but to provide information that otherwise other people may not have.
Commissioner, if there's a substantial conflict, the statute shouldn't participate at all, even in the deliberation.
Correct. I mean, if you're going to personally gain by it, meaning it's your job, you're going to get it lost. But many of us serve in boards and other boards and commissions. So those boards and commissions we serve may have an interest. But we individually don't, but we may have information that can clarify, like somebody else said before, a particular issue. And I'm not aware that there's any statute that says that will require you to leave the room. In fact, if I remember from all the trainings that I attend to around FOI, it's exactly what you're saying. It's strongly encouraged that you do not participate or obviously you don't vote on it.
Yes, Commissioner, if you're not comfortable with that, we certainly could
clarify it. I mean, or even get some assistance from FOI. Not FOI, Ethics Board. And then I have a question. Like, for instance, I'm a regulator, right? And we do business with entities that I may be in the process of fining, or I may be in the process of taking their license away. And you may not know that. Obviously, that I don't have a personal stake at it because I don't get paid any more or any less for it. But my employer may be getting, millions, if not, thousands, if not millions of dollars in fines. Is that a conflict for me?
Under the potential conflict section, if there's not a conflict, it provides a right statement indicating why you don't have a conflict if you're able to participate.
I may not even be able to tell you if there's a federal investigation going on. If there's an FBI or Justice Department investigation going on with an entity that we're doing business with, I can't even tell you that. I'll be breaking federal law. I can be put in prison. But that's rare. But, my point more is that as a regulator, right, I regulate mortgage companies. I regulate many entities. In fact, indirectly, I regulate CHFA when it comes to the truth in lending and so forth, right? If I know that there's a violation of the law and we're about to hit it with a fine, is that a conflict? I will argue no, because I'm not getting any personal benefit on it.
Correct.
But
that's correct. So, Terry,
I agree. If there is a conflict, or so people are going to refrain from voting or just not to speak, but if there is misinformation, and people just need to do a clarification. So I agree. Can we strike out that last piece that strongly encouraged to leave the room during the discussion and vote, or is that something that we do need to have there?
Yes, we can strike that out. Any other comments or suggestions?
Well, before we strike it out, I mean, I feel more comfortable if Teresa has already spoken to the ethics people, or if she gets a chance to talk to them and ask them some guidance. Because even though I'm advocating that I don't think the people need to not speak and need to leave, I feel more comfortable if they confirm that, yes, that's okay. And yes, and there are cases where that's happened, and the ethics board has ruled that was fine because the person was not getting a direct benefit, meaning it's not like your job or your paycheck is contingent on that vote, or that you're getting a commission or you're representing the borrower or the applicant.
It's not required that you leave the room, and again, we could strike it out. We do have ethics come in and give a presentation to the board every year, and I'm sure we'll be doing that in the summer, but we can strike that out. It's not a problem.
This is Gwendolyn Thames. Just to clarify, the language is to strongly encourage, right? So we're not saying you have to. It's basically you doing kind of the gut check. Do I need to leave the room and remove myself from the conversation? So I do think as a best practice, it probably makes sense to leave it in there to, again, employ board members to do that gut check. And, again, just in my experience on other boards that I sit on, that is something that we practice.
Any other comments?
Commissioner, I have a question.
Who's that?
Related to, it's Wendy.
Yes, thank you, Wendy.
In Article 10 for amendments, in the second sentence, and this is probably a distinction without a real difference, it says CHFA may adopt rules for the conduct of its business. Is that the board, or is that a reference to the administration separately adopting rules? And I assume that these rules will not be inconsistent with the bylaws, so we should probably clarify that.
Okay.
Terry?
Yes, we could do that. Clarify.
Just to be clear, CHFA is a reference to the board. Is that correct?
That's
as opposed
correct.
to staff?
That is
okay.
Correct.
Thank you, Wendy. Any other comments?
I have one other question. I read this bylaws, and if I missed it, I'm sorry, and it says that we can amend it, which is fine. But typically what I'm used to is that before you can amend the bylaws, it's a requirement that you have to notify the board members that at the next meeting, whether it's a special meeting or a regular meeting, that the topic will be up in the agenda so people know, because this is amending a bylaw is a serious thing, whether it's a minor amendment or a serious one. And the way I read it was basically on any meeting we could amend it without any prior notice per se. I mean, it would have to be an agenda, but, the agenda could be published 2 days before. So should we have something that it says, amendments required that notices go out to board members so many days ahead or something like that?
We could add that in there.
Okay. Because that's a serious action. And people really should know we're doing it,
Yes, we can add that in there.
Yep.
Any other comments? Questions?
So I'm a little confused. It's Jerry Abrahams. Are we amending the language with respect to open meetings, or are we going to check with the? Is Teresa going to check with the state ethics board first, or are we going to vote on the language as written?
Go ahead, Terry.
Yeah, no, we're not required to leave the room if that's what your question was, Jerry. So, again, we could strike that language, or we can leave it depending on what the board prefers.
I think the recommendation from George was to check with the ethics board, and if it makes sense, you keep it, and if not, then you can strike it. I think it might have been Gwendolyn who had a different opinion about keeping it in there. So I don't know if that requires a vote right now, or if we would just want to wait for Terry to check with ethics and then make a decision.
Yeah, we have talked to ethics about this before. You're not required to leave the room.
But this is Sarah Sanders. In that same sentence, they say not participate in the discussion. So it seems important to me, even if they stay in the room, I don't think they should be part of the discussion if there is an actual personal conflict. So I think, that's why leaving the room makes it easy not to participate in the discussion. But even if we don't have them leaving the room, I think we should keep in there, not participate in the discussion of the item.
So we just had an example in the mortgage committee where somebody recused themselves, but still provided some very valuable information to the discussion, which is, partly why we have some of the members on the committee and on the board, because they have certain information about different things that is valuable to consider for consideration. So it's a difficult line.
I also think that was George's point as well, right? Which is there may be some information that one of the members has that would be helpful to the discussion. So I don't know why we would ask people not to actually communicate information if it would be useful for everyone else to know, particularly if they're making an important decision.
Why don't I do this? I will check with ethics in terms of best practices and get their recommendation on this point.
And also make the distinction between a direct conflict, which means a direct financial conflict versus an indirect conflict or the perception of an indirect conflict because you serve on a board that you're not getting paid. Right. I mean, if I serve in the Mutual Housing Board, for instance, which I don't, right? I'm not getting paid. I'm a volunteer. But they're part of the deal, right? I don't think I should vote on it per se, but does that mean I can't provide important information and I have to leave even though I'm not getting paid? And I don't have a relative that works there, maybe my wife or sister or brother. You see what I'm saying? I really don't have a conflict except a perception one, right?
Yeah, this is Kylie. I'm wondering if it sounds like we have a lot of sort of questions about different scenarios that could play out here, and sort of, being the person that Carla just described, not having a financial interest or a direct financial involvement in one of the projects, but having information about her being intimately involved with a project in my prior role, something that's, come up for me, and I've abstained in those cases, even though probably technically I didn't have to. But I, for one, and maybe it sounds like others, would like to have a conversation with someone from ethics to just walk through some of those and give us a more robust understanding of sort of the ins and outs of that before we make a decision about, what's in the bylaws is sort of one thing, and it should clearly outline what we all want to abide by. But knowing sort of practice-wise, this goes a little deeper than I think our normal ethics conversation that we have annually. So my 2 cents would be to maybe bring someone from ethics to our next meeting to spend 15 minutes talking through that and answering some of those questions maybe.
I can ask Nancy Nicolette, too, who comes in every year and gives a presentation to the board, see if she's available for the next board meeting.
And we don't have to vote on the bylaws today. I mean, I think this is a healthy conversation since we haven't had one. We do need to have this conversation. So there are the best practice and also the notification. Terry, if you can get information to amend the bylaws, what is the best practice, or how many days should we give notice to the board if there are any changes or amendments to the bylaws. So, Nandini, do you agree with this? We'll leave the vote for next month. We will get the information that board members have requested. And if anybody has any other questions, please raise them now so that we'll bring the information at the next board meeting. Nandini?
I do agree with that.
Okay. Any other questions that Terry can take and do the research or incorporate into the bylaws?
Terry, one quick follow-up question. I'm sorry if I missed this. Is there a separate conflict of interest policy for CHFA?
We do have a conflict of interest policy for employees. It's in our handbook, but it basically says that the board members will follow the state statute.
Okay.
Wendy, do you have any recommendations?
No, maybe some of these finer points could be fleshed out in a policy and procedures as opposed to residing in the body of the bylaws, especially that recommendation. I prefer to see a recommendation in a standalone policy as opposed to in this document.
So in previous board that I have been participating in, there is a conflict and resolution form that every board member has to sign every year. Any details, just a couple of the main issues that are conflict. So I don't know if, Terry, you want to check on that?
So is the goal to take out the section on conflict of interest in the bylaws and put it in a separate policy? Is that?
No. I think it would remain where my recommendation would be that there's a general discussion of conflicts of interest that points back to the statutes, right? And we may also point to a separate standalone policy where things like recommendations are articulated more clearly as opposed to residing in this document, because I think when you have things like strongly recommend that you stay out of the meeting, it will show participation, as some folks have mentioned. So it might make sense to put it in a separate standalone document as best practices and recommendations. And you may want to just see what other agencies have done. That's just my recommendation.
Yeah, I will note that there are at least two other quasis that have almost the identical provision in their bylaws dealing with conflicts of interest. It's the Green Bay, Connecticut Airport Authority. But yes, we certainly could put recommendations in a separate policy as well.
Okay, thank you, Terry. Any other last questions or comments before we move on to the consent agenda? All right, so we'll leave that for next board meeting. Terry, thank you for all your work, and we'll talk after to see how we can strengthen the bylaws. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. So can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move. Tim.
Second.
Pam.
Shelley, could you do the roll call?
Terry Abrahams?
Aye.
Wendy Clark?
Yes.
Heidi DeWinger?
Aye.
Ann Foley?
Aye.
Kelly Goslin?
Aye.
Tim Hodges?
Aye.
Catherine McKinnon?
Aye.
Stella Mascara Bruno?
Yes.
George Perez?
Yes.
Franklin Perry?
Yes.
Sarah Sanders?
Aye.
Lisa Tepper Bates?
Aye.
Gwendolyn Thames?
Aye.
Carla Weil?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Motion passes. The last item on our agenda is a report from Natura on forbearance. Natura?
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. As a follow-up to the approval of the COVID-19 Forbearance Program that occurred in April, I wanted to take a few minutes to provide a status update and what we're seeing So during March and April, 20 mortgagors contacted CHFA to request relief due to COVID. Subsequently, about 40% of these mortgagors withdrew their requests. We believe these requests were initially made as an abundance of caution, and then once they were able to assess their cash flows and rent collections, they notified CHFA that the forbearance was not needed, however, that they would contact us if the situation changed for the month of June. Additionally, during the month, our asset managers approved a small number of requests to suspend deposits into replacement reserve accounts. This is as a way to allow the owner to redirect cash flow to offset COVID-related expenses. And as you know, this eliminates the need for a full forbearance when we can work with that mortgagor and other ways to provide relief. Another area that we're starting to monitor is on construction loans. We have one construction loan request right now where they're asking for relief due to COVID. So in some cases, in this particular case, this is a project where construction is complete, but lease-up is lagging. So we're going to be looking at these requests under COVID and, going through our evaluation and eligibility. We will provide further update at next month's board meeting. In summary, our staff is just continuing to work with mortgagors to complete our reviews and preparing those forbearance agreements for approval. And again, I will continue to provide regular updates in the coming board meetings. With that said, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Suda. Any questions?
Okay, what?
Masuda, can I ask, this is Lisa Tepperbate speaking, what percentage then is this of the total who are requesting forbearance?
Like estimate?
So we have approximately, I want to say, let's see, we had 7 or 8 that withdrew their request. We had a total of 4, so we have about
Hi, if you're not speaking, could you mute, please? Sorry, Masuda.
That's okay. So originally we have 20 requests, and of those, about 7 or 8 either withdrew the request completely, or they said that they would come back and if they needed, they would ask for the forbearance for the month of June. So that leaves about 12 or so that are under review right now. We have a few that are ready for recommendation and internal approval, and then we have a small number that are under review in terms of the evaluation and collecting additional due diligence so we can prepare the recommendation.
Great. So I guess my question, and maybe you can just get back to me, is in terms of a percentage of the total portfolio. Because what I think is the good news here, just to try and read the tea leaves, is this is a very small percentage of the total portfolio that is experiencing distress. I think we didn't know even a month ago if this was going to be a very large pool or a very small pool. So I'm just trying to put it in a context. And if you can maybe just get back in writing about that, that would be helpful. Nandini, I don't know if you have any other observations about that, but this is actually, I think, a rather positive sign compared to what we might have been expecting.
Yeah, this is definitely positive news. It's also a reflection that, a lot of households are continuing to receive their stimulus checks. They're collecting unemployment benefits, and now that the state is starting to reopen, some folks are going back to work. As a percentage of the overall portfolio, I would say it's a very small number. We have approximately 546 loans in the portfolio, about over $1.2 billion. So again, the 20 requests is a very nominal amount, and again, it's a good indication that the portfolio is not experiencing the same issues as originally anticipated. Now, that being said, it's still a little too early. We don't know if the situation is going to get worse in the next few months once the stimulus funding runs out, or with unemployment payments are running out, and so we're going to continue to monitor and come back to the board if additional flexibility is needed.
That's great. And I'm sorry, just help me with the math here. So it's 20 minus 8 plus 9. 9 are under review. 8 have been withdrawn. So it's a total of, at this point, it's what, really 21 are either approved or under review. Is that right?
The 20 included, so 28 fell out. That leaves 12, right? So 12 is the number, and that includes. So when she says under review, that's included in the number that I asked for the request. You know what I mean?
Great,
so
thank
12
you.
out of 546 or whatever.
Super.
So let me further break it down for you. So we had 5 properties that withdrew their requests altogether, and then there were 3 that said they withdrew their request for the month of May, but they said they want to kind of keep their option open for the month of June. And then we also had 3 requests, which this is not on the list that you received, and these were essentially temporarily suspending their replacement reserve accounts.
And the denominator is 546.
Lisa?
That's correct.
Hazim?
Great.
Hazim?
Yes. So the percentage is less than 1.5%.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I heard somebody else had a comment on the phone.
I am so hungry. I didn't go back on the
Any comment? Any other questions for Masuda? All right. Well, hearing none, thank you, Masuda. This was very helpful and good news. So we'll keep monitoring to make sure that we respond to some other issues or not if it's not needed, right? So can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Moved.
So moved.
Nobody wants to
Second.
Second, thank you. And I would assume that you all want to finish the meeting, right? So I don't do another roll call. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.